That was a good sound.
Everyone, well, today is the day. We're going to drop the engine in the 3.2 Carrera. I think we're all set with our prep. We just have a couple more things to do, disconnect the fuel lines and get our AC compressor up and over the rear haunch here. I spent yesterday building a little cradle for it here, so I routed out bits that it'll hold the engine nice and level as it comes down. Got our trusty dusty engine lift here. So this is going to be kind of orderly chaos, I think, is really what it's going to be. I've never done this before, so it should be very interesting. And because of that, and because this is a big heavy piece of equipment, it's always a good idea to have a second set of hands. So we're calling in our ringer. Doug is our ringer. And Doug is not only smarter than the average bear, but he's also done this before as well. He had an SC that he pulled the engine on, so he's got experience in this. It's gonna be great. So we've got the car positioned where we want it. We had talked about maybe using the lift to lift the car up over it and stuff, but I think that's just gonna be too complicated. I think what we're gonna end up doing is getting the engine down and then just manually using jacks to lift up the car and get it up enough to get the engine out the back. Once we get the engine down, we'll separate the engine and transmission and put the engine up on a yoke, and that is the goal for today. We're going to start by taking the compressor, the AC compressor off. It's just 4 bolts plus an adjustment on the back, but the reason why we have to do this is because all the plumbing associated with it stays with the car. This, for instance, is the heat exchanger here, and all this plumbing. This is all part of the air conditioning system, so when we drop the engine, this has to stay with the car. Let me go ahead and pull this off. Just take a second.
Jeez.
I know. It's actually a bolt. Funny, there's 3 bolts and a nut. All right, that's that. That's the guy back there. All right, that leaves one last thing down here. There's a little tensioner here that we need to take off as well, so we can slide it. Just loosen up the set bolt and get our belt off. There we go, belt off. Theory, we are all disconnected. So here we go, this guy up. Yep, that's the idea. And then it should, in theory, sort of flop over. Boy, you really want to make sure you got a big, thick towel here. I'm going to put a little extra padding right under that knuckle there. There we go.
I'll have to go back to dance by hand.
Right? I know. Okay, I think we're good. With our air conditioner compressor out and flopped over on the haunch here, our last thing, which is the last thing I've really wanted to do, is the fuel lines. Now, one thing to remember is that those fuel lines are still under pressure, so expect a bit of gas out of them. There's not much you can do about that. Just be ready for it, rags and such, and we'll have the fire extinguisher at the ready. So on a 3.2 Carrera, we have 2 fuel lines. We have an out of the pump that goes to the car, and then one that goes back through and ends up back in the gas tank again. So it's sort of the circulating fuel system. So we got 2 of them we have to take off. And I'm looking at this, I think what I'm gonna do is pull the one on the top of the fuel filter, and then our return line down there, I think I can get it off the bottom of the rail, and I think it's gonna be pretty easy. Like I said, there's gonna be some extra fuel in here, so fuel lines and stuff are still under pressure. So I've got my rags ready. Now, one thing about these lines is you never wanna just put a wrench on the top one. You always wanna hold it with the bolt underneath it, because you can just kind of twist things the wrong way if you do. So, all right, so I'm gonna put my rag underneath here, hopefully catch the majority of this. And in addition, we have Doug, our smarter than the average bear Doug, with the fire extinguisher at the ready. All right, so here we go. There we go. It's not stupid tight. Pull this up off the top. So we don't have any fuel in the lines because the car's been sitting so long. Depends on how fast you do this, I suppose. But yeah, it's nice and dry, which is great. So that's good. Let's go ahead and get to our second one, our return line. There we go. Now this does have a little bit of fuel. It is dribbling a little bit, not too bad, just a little dribble. Well, crazy as it sounds, I believe that's it. We're ready to go. So we're gonna go ahead and get set up here. We got to get the jack thing underneath it and kind of get a little bit of a plan and start to drop this engine. I'm using those nifty Jack Pad inserts, and after I've got the front wheels well chalked, we went ahead and raised the entire car, just trying to get it up so we have a starting point as we start to drop the engine. So this is a great place to hold up the car, to put your jack stand, is the torsion tube on the car. It's a hard point on the car, so it makes it nice. There's a cradle on top of the jack stands. It's very stable. Now that we have the wheels off the ground and stuff, I think we've got plenty of clearance. I think we can start taking out the engine at this point. I'll roll my engine jack under the engine here and start to lift it up. All right, just bring this up a little bit until it sort of sets in there. And you remember I routed out the section on it, so it should sit into its little slot just perfectly and lock in so it doesn't move. All right, now at this point, what I want to do is just maybe move it up a little bit more. This is kind of a weird thing. We need to jack the engine up enough to take the weight off of it. We'll move it up a little bit. Last thing I want is to loosen up the engine mounts and have the engine fall. There we go. I think that's pretty good. Well, I think we're all set. I think what we're going to do, I've got my engine cradle under there and I've got it up. It seems like it's holding the weight of the engine at this point. I think we're going to loosen the rear engine mounts here. So there's one on each side here, big 19mm bolts, and we're going to pull those first and see where we are. There's two more in front of the transmission. We've got a couple of things we have to do. We've got to get the engine down, and we have to get that shift shaft out of the tunnel. So the whole engine's going to have to come down, out, down, out. I think it's going to be a step thing. We'll see how it goes. So, okay, here we go. And Doug, let me know if you see anything weird going on or you see anything crazy.
So far we are happy.
Yes?
Just double check.
Yes.
Okay, mine had nuts on it.
Yeah, so the SC is that way. These don't. Okay, that one's loose. I have replaced these engine mounts before. There we go. Okay. And notice the engine didn't drop, which means that we've got enough pressure underneath it, which is a good thing. So what I want to do, I think, is pull these out, but still leave them in a little bit. What do you think, Doug? Yeah, just so that if anything goes wrong, they can still hang a little bit on them. All right, now I'm thinking I can climb underneath and loosen up the front two mounts for the transmission.
You just have to ask yourself the question now.
Yes.
Do I really want to do this? It's a really good time to
Right. It's kind of now or never. All right. Okay, there it goes. All right, here we go. Loosening up the second transmission mount bolt. All right, what do you think? Do you think we can take them out at this point?
We're committed.
All right, we're committed. Here we go, or should be. All right, there we go. Okay, without any serious drama, I think we're good. Let's go ahead and remove our engine bolts back here all the way. All right, that's the bit underneath there. There's a big washer under there that comes off. What do you say, Doug? You think we're there?
We pull back to get the shifter coupler out.
Will it go back, do you think, at this point? Look at that. Look, it's loose.
Okay.
I think it's about as far back as it'll go,
I was going to say, now you got to drop down a little.
All right. So to get this down smoothly, this is the release down here, this pedal, and if you hit it, it just goes poof and falls straight down. So I've got the locks here set, but I'm going to be kind of hitting this or tapping it, and I think that's the best way to get this thing down.
Yeah, it's going. It looks like it is.
See what you see up there, Doug. Yeah?
Going perfect.
Okay, good. Oh yeah, look at that. It's coming down. It looks like it's just disappearing. You can see it right here at the very edge of the rubber boot. So we still have a few more inches before it has to come out. Okay, so the engine still has to come back a bit, yes? Okay.
But I think we have more clearance now.
Oh, do we? Okay.
Going good, going good.
And I just want to make sure, is this, looks like there's some electrical, yeah, I just want to make sure it's disconnected.
That's a great point, Heidi, is to double check all the electrical at this point and all hoses.
We're even sticking on something. So
Sure,
even if they've been
absolutely.
disconnected.
Muffler is starting to interfere, so we might have to pull this back a little bit. Well, we got a little bit of an interference here with this bit on the lift. I think we'll see how it goes. I've got a nice towel here and I think we'll be okay. It should slide forward a little bit, but we'll see. Are we good, Doug? How we doing?
I think so. It's going to pop.
Wow, it's
Yeah.
coming down. Franny.
It's definitely coming down, huh? Look at that. All right, we set?
Yeah.
All right, down we go a little bit.
This is going to pop.
All right, the problem is that we are still sort of stuck on this guy here. Go
They
up.
could have built the car an inch longer at this point. We
I know,
cleared
right?
Everything. Can we go up? I know that.
Yes, we can.
We
There's
kinda
up a little bit.
have the air conditioner belt wedged in there.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good. Good. No, that's good. Yeah, I see. The engine needs to go forward a little bit. Can it go forward? What do you think?
And I may try and lift up on it on
Wait.
the transmission because we still have the coupler just barely.
Oh, is it even?
Last seat.
Oh my gosh, how are you supposed to do this? Okay.
Make the car an inch longer.
Right. It would have been great. Okay.
You were awesome.
Are you good? Yes.
That was a good sound.
So this was our problem. We had the belt stuck up here, and it actually put a little bit of a dent in this cross piece here, which we'll have to bang back out. Not the end of the world, but these sorts of things happen when you've never really done this before. So, and it's as Doug said, it's kind of a strange thing. The problem was that the shift shaft was still stuck inside the tunnel, but we couldn't get the engine back any further. So we ended up having to sort of jack up the front, the transmission mount a little bit, which tilted the engine back, which got us out.
We still need to push the engine back some.
Okay, I think we can accommodate that. So it's still up on the jack in the front. Yes. There we go. Back a little bit.
If you can go down at all, I think you're almost out of down. Okay.
All right, we are down all the way, which means we have to raise the car at this point. I suppose we'll know when we put the engine back in to tilt it more forward, get the forward part of it up a little bit so we can get it in sort of at an angle. And then we'll have a better ability to push the engine forward and then get it up so we don't have this interference in the back that we ran into. Okay, so Doug is raising the other side. Here's the deal. We've got to raise this thing up really high, about almost 2 feet in order to get the engine out from underneath it, and then a little more because of our cradle and our jack system under there. So that's what we're going to be doing next, is just raising it up on each side, pushing up the jack stands, and getting the car, the rear of the car, up high enough to get the engine out from underneath. And look at this down under here. Look at this, huh? You can see our engine sort of appearing out from underneath there. And this gives you an idea of just what we're dealing with here and how much height we've got to get. We still have the fuel injection back there that has to come out as well. So we've got our fan shroud first and then all this back there. So we're gonna have to raise this thing up pretty high. We're getting there. An idea of what we look like so far, angle-wise. Now I have the top down as well. I don't want any interference with the bottom of the lift, but boy, this thing's gonna have to go up a ways. Doug's on it. He's got his big, huge, tall jack there. And then we've got these big jack stands under here. And we can keep ratcheting up. These things go up awfully high. This looks so crazy and precarious. Here we go. What could go wrong? Okay. Okay.
I'm thinking we have more room here now. With
Oh, I see what you're saying. And you just come out at an angle? You might be able to do that.
Diagonally.
We have our wire up front. I need to disconnect.
Where is it?
The little wire going to the transmission, it looks like. And it doesn't appear to have a connector on it. What could that be?
hardware.
This guy. So so I have to pull this off? Okay. All right, that looks like a 10 millimeter. I didn't even know that was there. A little clip there. So this is a sensor of some kind, and that's what we needed to remove. At this point, I think we have the car up high enough, at least that's our hope. It's a little higher on one side than the other, and we're gonna try and scoot out on the left side there. So I'm gonna have Doug sort of wrangle this thing out a bit, and I'll just watch for clearance. That was an interesting sound. I think that looks pretty good. We're still so close on our air box here. If we can move even closer to that wheel. Ah, there we go. Nice. That's better. That's right. We had it on the jack. Whoa, it's sliding. Okay, it's listing. It's not sitting on its cradle anymore properly. But that's all right. That's all right.
Come around and go ahead and let the jack down.
All right, there we go.
We are clear.
Yay! All right.
You hold that and I'll give it another tug or two.
Yes. We're dragging the jack with us. Okay, that should do it. So I think at this point we can move things, yes?
Slow but sure.
All right. Probably a good idea to get the car down on all fours before we go too much further. And then we can go in just a little bit further maybe. Okay, that's good. Our next step is going to be to separate the transmission from the engine here. Now this is kind of a la Volkswagen Beetle really. We've got our starter hanging off up here. These are 10 millimeter hex on this guy, one on this side, one on the other side. And then we have 3 more 15 millimeter nuts we need to take off. And in theory, this thing should really just sort of slide back. Now there's one quick little thing I need to do here, and that is to pop off the ball joint here for the throttle linkage. There it goes. Okay, just need a little friendly convincing, so that pops off. And then down here, there's a little larger section at the top there that we can pop this line off. See that?
No, this is the dirtiest you'll ever see it, because
yes.
I know Franny will not tolerate it.
Oh, this will all get cleaned up. Let's start with the starter. Why not? I have to confess that Doug has already popped these loose for me. Use like a wrench on the back side of this, like this, and you can get quite a bit of extra leverage to loosen these guys up. So we'll loosen this up, and then I'll get the one on the other side here. It's just on the bottom down here. Okay, so these are just 10 millimeter, and you can see somebody tried to jam a tool in there and they kind of jacked these things up a little bit, which is unfortunate. Remember, the starter is not light. Here we go. Work this guy out. There it is. Okay, so we have more wires back here we need to disconnect. This is a simple little screw there we need to take off, and then this guy's just still loose. 7 millimeter. And so given the choice, when you've got a screw flathead like that, and it's also a hex as well, I always go for the nut driver on that, just because it's so easy just to round these things off. We'll just put our hardware right back on so we don't lose it. We want to double check these gear teeth here and make sure that they look okay. We'll also check our starter gear ring on our flywheel, but they look okay. So any questions on the starter, it's easy enough to just take it down to a local shop and get it rebuilt. This one actually works fine, and so I'll probably just clean it up and we'll just put it right back in. But now's the time. It's out and it's in your hands. So any question whatsoever about it, feel the bearing, how does it feel? Does it seem to turn okay? You know, does all that work well? If anything looks out of sort, now's the time. Next, we just have our 15 millimeters here, and we'll go ahead and loosen up the ones on the bottom and then do this one last. They're not particularly tight. There we go. Okay, there we go. Yeesh. There it goes. Yep, that's what I thought. Yeah, much easier if you can use the ratchety thing. Yeah, okay. As we've done so many times with this project, we're going to bring in our ringer again, bring in Doug, and I think there's a special, is there a special way we need to separate this?
If I remember right, you've already got the key piece. It's where the disengagement goes into the throwout bearing.
Okay.
That has to slide out of the slot. And you've already got if you'd have left it in the car and it still had the rod on it, that's where you get into trouble, is you can't twist everything.
So we should be able to just pull it out then, huh? Okay, all right, this will be exciting then. We have it supported with a third jack there in the center, just because. So what do you think, Doug? Just sort of move it backwards, or what do you want to do? Yeah, there it is. Now it's loose. All right, so there we go. Just basically slides back, and there we go.
Wow.
All right, that wasn't too bad. This is the piece you were talking about, yes? That it needed to be disconnected? Yes.
Yes. These teeth
Heidi.
slide into that.
Okay.
So this is what Doug was talking about. So this is the little yoke for the throwout bearing, this bit here. And then over here is the throwout bearing. This is it here.
Okay.
And those teeth go in here. So that's what Doug was saying, was they had to be released first.
Okay.
So that's done. Now that the transmission is out and separated, it's going to need a good bath. I mean, it looks pretty bad. It's pretty dirty. Our next step is going to be to get this engine up on the engine stand. So we have to mount our yoke to it to start with, and then we have to raise this engine up and get it up onto the actual engine stand. And Doug had a brilliant idea. He said, why don't you just use the lift? Great idea. So we'll probably wheel the entire thing onto the lift the lift up, and then we can get it exactly the right height, and we'll slide it right onto the end of the engine stand. So next step's going to be to install our yoke. All right, well, we have our engine yoke here that's going to mount to our engine stand, and it's going to go on these two studs here and here. Just sort of like this and slide it back. That's the idea. But we're hitting a sensor up here, so I'm gonna have to pull that out, and then there's a little piece of tin up here I think I want to pull out, because I really want a good, seriously good mount on this. I don't want it kind of all wobbly and wonky like this. So there's a couple of 10mm little guys in here. We'll take these guys off. The trick is to remember all of this. Luckily, I'm filming this so I can go back and look at this. But I also took a bunch of pictures of this as well. Yep, there we go. It feels loose. It's interesting. Slides into the tin on each side. That's very different. Wow, that's a super long bolt. Oh. Slide that guy out. Yes. There we go. Pull you out. Yes. Okay, I'm going to put you back there so you don't wander off. Now, let's see what we've got with the yoke now. See how that goes. Well, that feels better. Now we have our yoke all the way up against the actual engine case. Feel a lot better about that. Obviously, I'm going to have to get some extensions so I can put the bolts on to hold it on. With our sensors out of the way up here, we can mount our yoke. Now you're going to need some type of extension here because these are really long studs. And Doug and Heidi went out and got a little square tubing here, which is great. I have a couple of new nuts to put on because I want to make sure I clean the originals. I don't want them sitting on this. So I've got that one, and then we've got one down here at the bottom as well. All right, we're just going to tighten these guys up. Okay, don't need to be super duper tight, just tight enough to hold everything together. Okay, all right, well, with our yoke mounted, we're all set to put this actually up on the engine stand. We're gonna have to lower the lift, put the engine on the lift, hanging off the end, and we'll raise it up until it lines up with the engine stand. Okay, in case this doesn't work out. I think so. I guess you have.
That's perfect.
Kinda, sorta. There we go. Slowly. Super slowly.
Yeah, you don't want to drop on the action. Okay.
It's off the thing. What do you think? Do you want to stop for a second and be happy?
What do you think, Doug?
I would be delicate when you do stuff, but it should be good.
All right.
Does that engine stand long?
The wheels do, yes.
Sort of.
Yeah. You could so move that recycle bin forward if you do.
Well,
You can go back a little bit. There we go.
Well, that was super exciting. I am so glad that everything went well with that, all the way to even pushing the engine all the way to the back of the garage. So thankfully, all went well. Now we have lots of stuff in store in the future that you're not going to want to miss. So Franny is going to be working with the transmission, and then we're getting it rebuilt at a place here locally. And then she's also going to be doing some engine work. So if you have not subscribed and you're interested in this project, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified as soon as we upload a video. And I would also once again like to thank Doug for helping us today. He took his entire day off to come and help us with this whole removal process, and we couldn't have done it without Doug. He actually even brought some tools to help us as well. So I want to also give a special thank you to our Patreon supporters, and thank you all for watching. Go ahead and give us a thumbs up if you liked the video, and until next time, safe travels. Bye.